Hey, Michael, thanks for coming on to the show today, man. I am really excited to talk about apartment investing. It's one of my favorite things to talk about because it really is the number one way that I see people actually moving from their 9 to 5 job and actually being able to get out of the rat race and have the passive income that they're looking for. And a lot of it has to do with, from what I can tell, it's that you're playing in a bigger game. You're playing in a game that if you win this game, it's actually worth winning, because it gets you from where you're at to where you want to be very quickly. But with these kind of bigger games that we get into, it also means that we really got to know what it is we're doing. And so that means we usually have to partner with people that know more than us. So that way we, make sure not to make a misstep. So thank you so much for coming on the show here today. And for everybody that doesn't know you, Michael, what's a good set the stage for them so they know who they're listening here today?
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on the show, Scott. It's a real pleasure to be here. Well, gosh, where should I start? I totally agree with you, right? I mean, I was the same way. I thought the way to quit my job was to be a real estate investor. So that's what I did, flipping houses. And until I figured out that, man, flipping houses is a lot of work. You make some money, but once you sell the house, the money stops flowing. Meanwhile, these apartment buildings send you mailbox money, and you can make a lot more money in a lot fewer deals than flipping houses. So it took me a while to figure that out. And once I did, it's just so much easier to essentially quit your job or achieve financial freedom.
And you're helping people do that every single day as part of your company, aren't you? As walking people through how do they achieve that financial freedom?
Yeah, I mean, my journey was pretty long. It took over a decade. I lost over $1 million with stuff like restaurants and things of that nature. So when I figured this out, my mission started becoming, or is now, helping people become financially free with real estate, but maybe not in the way that they're thinking, which typically, like for me, was single family house investing. It actually is apartment building investing. So my mission is really to help people potentially augment what they're currently doing in single family houses, or to transition entirely from single family houses to multifamily, or to skip the entire single family housing. Just skip it.
I've heard some people caution against skipping the single family home investing altogether, because I've heard some people say, you really should buy at least a few single family homes to even get the basics of how real estate transactions actually work, because apartment complexes are more complex. What's your take on that?
Yeah, like I said, I used to believe that. I no longer do. I think once you get some education on the multifamily side, the same kind of education you need for a single family house. It'll take you just as long to learn how to do a single family house as it does a single multifamily. So there's no ramp up there. And number two, you think that you might be getting experience through a single family house or a series of single family houses, but it does not really translate to commercial. And I know this because I called up brokers and I said, hey, I flipped, I'm looking for multifamily apartments. And they're like, well, who are you? I said, well, I'm Demand. I flipped 3 dozen houses. And they're like, yeah, but how many apartments have you done? I'm like, none, but look at all the houses I flipped. And you get no credit for this thing. And so I realized that my quote experience on the house flipping side didn't really translate to multifamily. And it's unnecessary. I can actually learn how to do multifamily, learn to raise money without having done any kind of single family.
Yeah, that's pretty great, Michael, because I was wondering about that when it comes into, the experience level that you need to be able to get into apartment complexes, and bridging that gap. Is that something that you guys really specialize in? Is how do you get people to, get involved in a community of investors, to be able to make sure that they're going to be confident and secure in going into those first deals, since they're going to be skipping, all of the quote unquote newbie stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I think education is key, and it's not something that takes years. It's not like, oh, let me do some single family house investing for the next 5 or 10 years. It's not like that at all. I mean, in 30 days, you can learn how to raise money, how you can find deals, how you can analyze deals. It's a very, very learnable skill, and the key with it is to build up skill level, practice, so that you have confidence as you're dealing with people. And it's actually a much simpler process than the average person might believe.
Very, very cool, man. Well, I know that a lot of times we have a lot of different investors that listen to the show, and that there's investors, typically seem to take a couple of different routes. Some of them are more active, some of them are more passive. Into that is really apartment complexes and multifamily investing really suitable for every type of investor. They just need to be in this asset class to really win.
Yeah, I think so. I think one of the things I love about multifamily is there's so many different ways you can achieve the same goal. So let me give you an example. You mentioned active versus passive, right? I can be an active investor, meaning I can be a syndicator who wants to find a deal, raise the money, find the proper manager. And my goal is I want to quit my job with passive income. Cool. Now, let's say I'm a passive investor. I'm a high income earner, but I'm working 60 hours a week at my law firm or as a dentist. Wow, that's great. I want to do the same thing. I want to quit my job or my partnership one day. I just happen to have a lot of money and no time. Well, I can take that money and invest it in multifamily and achieve the same thing, which is passive income and long-term wealth. And then within the active world, there's different ways you can even achieve the same goal in the active world. You can actually build up equity and passive income just by finding deals. You can build up equity and passive income just by raising money for other syndicators through a bunch of joint venturing. So I just love the creative nature of this business and so many different ways you can achieve the same goal.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. I mean, I really think it's one of those really cool asset classes that no matter who you are going into it and whatever it is you want to do, that you're going to be able to find a way to be able to make that work, and be participating in a game that's actually worth winning when it comes into it, right? Because you can get a bunch of single family homes. You're like, okay, great. It doesn't really get me what I really wanted, which was the financial freedom and the security to be able to leave my job and what to do with that. Now, I work with a lot of investors right now too, that they're saying, hey, well, real estate, we think it might be at the top of the market. And they're looking at blended strategies with saying, hey, I want to have some of my money in real estate, maybe 10% of my portfolio in gold, maybe a blended stock strategy, with that. Have you seen a lot of your any investors kind of going that route and starting to use more blended strategies for long-term wealth creation or preservation in this instance?
Yeah, I think the majority of our investors, they're not getting out of the stock market, but what they're thinking is, man, is there anything else besides the stock market? So you're looking at what happened in December. You're looking at the outlook and the volatility of stock market. Look at the performance of the stock market in the last 30 years, and people are scratching their heads, going, man, the uncertainty is so high, the volatility is so high. I can't make any kind of financial planning with any kind of certainty. And they starting to ask the question, is there anything else? And that's when things like that come up. They go, my gosh, what am I going to do against inflation? Oh yeah, maybe I should look into gold. What am I doing about passive income? What am I doing that's going to be more recession proof? And that's when they start asking questions around real estate, multifamily, mobile home parks. So the person asking those questions is coming from a place where something is not working right. And now something that's not working right is the stock market, and they're looking for a solution.
I think that's 100% right? When you're looking at saying, with the stock markets, you can't really control much of the up and down it's going to be. But if you're buying the real estate at the right price and you have the right LTV going into the deal, for example, I just had Grant Cardone on the show here recently, and me and him were talking about that. And I said, well, Grant, what would you do differently? And he said, I would just buy every piece of real estate I could possibly get my hands on, and I would never sell it. And I was like, man, that's a crazy thing to say, into it. And I was like, but that probably matters how you got into the deal, right? And he's like, yeah, I'm not trying to put more than 65% or 70% LTV into a deal because I want to make it where markets go up and down and I don't care. And then I can just hold that thing for forever. And then I just build my portfolio on top of it, right? So I think there's some neat things that people are talking about now that's really different than the gold rush mentality that everybody had before, which is, how do we really make sure that we're preserving all of those wealth? In some ways that can be is taking some money off the table from the stock market while it's high and channeling it into real estate. When it comes into that, though, I think a lot of people get stymied and saying, like, how do I actually know what is a good deal? How do I analyze what a good deal would be? And I know that's something that you talk about. It's like, hey, I can get it and analyze a deal in 10 minutes. Like Grant Cardone is over here telling me, he's like, I can analyze a deal in 60 seconds. I walk onto the property, I know whether I want to buy it or not. And that has to come from something else. So what is it that gives, you and other elite performers in the industry that edge to be able to quickly know whether a deal is right or not?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it comes with, with training, with the right tools, and then of course repetition, right, and experience. That's really what it is. Now, as a passive investor, you don't have to become an analysis, spreadsheet expert. That's not really required, but you have to be able to know to ask the right questions and to kind of call BS on someone that's kind of trying to pitch you a deal. And there's a lot of common sense involved about how someone is underwriting or the assumptions made behind the underwriting and whether they have an answer that makes sense. As an active investor, you have to get really good at analyzing deals. So you do have to be familiar with spreadsheets or using models like our syndicated deal analyzer. You have to validate the assumptions behind there because investors are going to ask you about them. So depending on who you are, requires different levels of skill.
Yeah, that's really neat. And is that something that you walk people through as part of like the programs that you have put together? And say like, okay, what are your objectives? And here's the things you're actually going to need to get at. Here's the things that you don't probably need to get so great at, but you might want to know about.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it's a progression. You talked about the 10-minute offer, right? So making sure that you don't overanalyze a deal in the beginning. In the beginning, it took me 4 hours to make an offer on an apartment because I was analyzing it, researching it, making phone calls, and then finally I would come up with a number and I make the offer, and there was like crickets from the other end, right? Obviously, my offer was too low. Now I wasted 4 hours of my life making an offer that was obviously not in the ballpark versus spending a lot less time making offers informally and getting feedback from the broker, as an example, as a way to work smarter and not harder.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And I know too, one of the things that you're really great at is that you're a master connector of people. That's not just in the apartment complex, but everything else that they're going to need along with it. Because it's not just buying an apartment complex, right? When you're trying to say, how do I get financially free? You're looking at the broader landscape of what it is that people need. When you're working with people and they're working on getting to become financially free, of course you're educating them on apartments. But what other things do you think that that come up time and time again for the majority of your clients as, hey, that these are the other gaps that they need to fill?
Yeah, I mean, you got to build your team. The team is absolutely invaluable because there's so many different experts that need to be involved on it. There's there's obviously the real estate closing attorney. There's a legal team, and you guys are obviously one resource in that one. There's your CPA. Very important to have a CPA. You need your property manager. You need a lender. So if you have those 4 or 5 individuals on your team, not only do you now have the experts that are working for you, but number two, you can now present a bigger picture to the outside world. It's not just, you as in nobody, you have no track record, but look at the people you have on your team, right? You have this person, you have this property manager, running 5,000 units. You have this CPA, you have this attorney, and now you're presenting a much bigger view and picture of yourself with a combined experience of decades. And that's the difference between, this is not a one man or one woman sport. It's a team sport. And people who don't realize that are going to fail, and people who do realize that succeed.
That's a beautiful thing. I think that's 100% right. You get the team, right? If you got the team, then you pretty much got like everything that you need, from that. And then it's about knowing like what your role in as the team. And it's kind of like my experience of being into it was like my first experience of being a CEO. It's my first experience being a CEO is actually coordinating all these people on the team, making sure they're communicating correctly. Is everybody staying on top of what it is that they need to be doing? And so even though you have a team, has it been your experience that you still need to be fairly active and watching, what your team is doing to make sure, balls don't get dropped? Or have you had it where it's like completely hands off and your team just runs after they get enough experience?
Yeah, it depends on the maturity of your team, right? The first time around might be a little rough and you might be, micromanaging or looking over everybody's shoulder. Second time around, you have some comfort level with the team, or maybe you've noticed there's a weak link in your team and you replace them. But over time, what happens is you have a lot more trust in your team. And when that happens, when that truly happens, it is amazing what you can do with very, very little effort. I mean, we're closing on a 225 unit tomorrow in Memphis. And my involvement has been so minimal, I almost feel guilty taking equity in the deal. But it's because with a current team, we've done a half dozen transactions and everybody kind of just knows what they're doing. We've already ironed out all the kinks. We all, we make sure that we didn't make the same mistakes before. And now it's just unbelievably easy.
Yeah, that's awesome, Michael. Well, I mean, it's such a wealth of knowledge in here. And when people, as a people, I'm sure that listening to us here today are going to want to connect with you. What is the first steps for them getting started and working with you and learning how to do, apartment investing?
Yeah, I mean, two things. One is I have a book on Amazon called Financial Freedom with Real Estate Investing. It's a bright yellow book. It's a great overview of multifamily investing and shows you exactly how to overcome lack of experience, lack of money, and shows you the mechanics of closing a deal. So it's a great introduction to the world of multifamily investing as an active or passive investor. And then the website is themichaelblank.com. That's THE and then BLANK. And we have a YouTube channel, podcast, blog posts, and we also have online courses, mentoring, and live events as well for anyone who wants to take it to the next level.
That's awesome, Michael. And guys, I can tell you for everybody listening here today is that I've known Michael for a long time, just as full disclosure. And that one we been on each other's shows many times. I've had many clients that have worked with him. Always really great reviews that I get back from it. So I can't encourage you enough to take just those first steps and go to check it out a little more and see if this is the right direction you want to go to. Because the people that I've known that have gone through the whole process rave about it. So if you just take those first steps that are necessary, I'm sure that it'll pique your interest in saying, hey, is this really the route that I want to go to? Because I know at the end of that rainbow, there's actually a whole lot of gold there for you guys. I'm getting into it. So thank you so much, Michael, for coming on here to the show here today. Everybody, reach out to Michael, themichaelblanc.com. If you haven't gotten an LLC yet for your asset protection or to save money on your taxes, we're giving away truly free LLCs. We're even giving away the filing fees for them, guys. This is unlike anything that anybody else has ever done before. LegalZoom doesn't do this. No other attorneys in the world do this. We're the only ones that you can come get your first free LLC through, guys. And it's truly, truly free because we know that the lifetime value of being associated with us is going to make us all grow together. And that's what we're looking for. So thank you, Michael, for so much for coming on the show. Let's stay in touch. And I love all you guys that are out here listening. So let's leave some comments down here to be able to tell us what you like about the show, what anything else that we can help you with. And we have active people here at RLS that monitor those comments to be able to answer any questions you guys have. So looking forward to connect with every single one of you guys. Thanks.